Maggie. I'm a licensed clinical psychotherapist with degrees in psychology, theology, and marriage and family therapy, a national certification in dialectical behavioral therapy, and a national certification in integrative mental health. In this video, I'm not looking to diagnose anyone. I'm only willing to offer insight into situations like these. Y'all, welcome to Wednesday. I hope you can hear me. For some reason, when I was playing that, I couldn't hear it at all. So I hope you guys can hear me. I was sending mass texts asking, can you guys hear? I can't hear anything. Well, welcome to Wednesday. That means we're going to get weird. I really enjoy that. I like the rabbit holes that we go down on Wednesdays. So let me say hi to some people. Chef Mike was first for the first time. Yay, Chef Mike. Putting you up here. Look at that. He says, good evening, Maggie. Looking forward to a great class/discussion tonight. Me too. Me too. This one's going to be real weird. You're going to have to hold on to your hats. And the weird and the tinfoil hat are very, very connected. So, hi, Nina. Thank you for being here. Oh, Chef Mike says hi to Nina. Hi, Prince Mugo. Thanks for being here. You're my hippie friend. Or I'm your hippie friend. I'm not sure if you're a hippie. Adrian's in here. Thank you for being here. All right. And everybody can hear me. Okay. Thank goodness. I missed the whole song and dance in the beginning. Dang it. All right. So the first part of Pivot Point Wednesdays, I'm going to present the information about what the topic is, right? Then we're going to get weird. And then we're going to go all the way into a tinfoil hat. So I hope everybody's got their seatbelts on and ready to buckle up. Hi, Armando. Thank you for being here. Aw, it's his first live. He's normally the replay gang. Yay. That's exciting. All right. Happiness. Essentially, it's feeling or showing pleasure. I mean, it sounds really simple, right? But why aren't we happy? Right. It's because happiness is inarguably subjective, right? Like what makes you happy may annoy me, or what makes me happy may mean nothing to you. And so it really is about the person who's experiencing the happiness. Like people can look happy and actually not even be happy. So it's not what we see, right? Man's quest for happiness has been going on for a very long time. Unfortunately, not just your whole life, but all the way back to ancient Greece, at least. Okay. In ancient Greece, their big thing was hedonism, which is like man's quest for happiness, you know? And what they said was that the pursuit of pleasure should be the highest goal. Now, we know what was going on in ancient Greece. So, maybe that was a little too self-indulgent, right? Sometimes at the expense of others. So maybe it shouldn't necessarily be the highest aim in life, right? But what they did find, and that what we still see, is that people always will choose pleasure over pain, right? Like if that's our choice, we're going to pursue pleasure, right? Every time. In psychology, happiness has two parts, which is hedonia, which comes from hedonism, right? And that's just pleasurable feelings. And then there's eudaimonia, which is feeling that life is good. So happiness comes from a pleasurable feeling, but then also feeling like it's good, life is good, or feel content in the moment, okay? Freud said, and again, I always have my notes, I always have notes in front of me, right? Freud said, people strive after happiness They want to become happy and to remain so. Do you guys agree with that? This endeavor has two sides, a positive and a negative aim. It aims, on the one hand, at an absence of pain and displeasure, and on the other, at the experiencing of strong feelings of pleasure. So, again, Freud's talking about how we're trying to get rid of pain and displeasure and we're seeking pleasure. Okay. All right. Systems in the brain that experience pleasure, from food and sex all the way through to altruism, involve the same structures in the brain, but how it all functions is still pretty unknown. There are studies, but if we could create happiness, if we could create pleasure, wouldn't we? Right? But they really can't. And plus, we get addicted to those kind of things really easily because we're always seeking happiness, right? And because happiness is subjective, self-report, like somebody telling you they feel happy, also has their bias and expectations in it. But we'll talk about that in a little bit. So once you get happiness, how do you keep happiness, right? Because it seems like whenever we're happy, it wanes, right? Like either we get used to the situation and then it just becomes normal, so we don't have those same feelings of happiness. Think about when you first start a relationship, right? Like you see them and you're just giddy and you get the butterflies and you're so happy, right? But eventually your person becomes your new normal, right? And you don't have these big huge feelings of euphoria, which I usually say, get past the feelings of euphoria before you decide to like be together forever. Okay. Studies show that people are really, really bad at anticipating future happiness. So multiple studies. We just kind of suck at anticipating happiness in the future. Hi, Leon. Thanks for being here. We overestimate joy. And we also overestimate being upset. So we usually think we're gonna feel more strongly about things than we actually do. We're kind of bad at it. Okay. We're also consistently staking claims that this thing or this person or this situation will make us happy. And you can't make anyone happy, even your own self, right? It's kind of like sleep. The more you try to sleep and hang on to sleep, the harder it gets. And then you get frustrated and then you're kind of amped up. And now sleep is like, it's a memory. It's not happening. Happiness is the same way. The more you seek it, the more you try to hold on to it, the more frustrated and disappointed that you get, right? That's actually called the hedonic treadmill. Like the more we seek it and try to keep it, it's like being on a treadmill. We just like never get there. The more we seek it, the more it decreases. Isn't that terrible? We, as human beings, have something called a homeostasis of mood, meaning that in general, we kind of have our baseline mood. And for some of us, it's slightly annoyed. For some of us, it's a little bit anxious. For some people, it's a little happy, right? But and that has more to do with our sense of wellness. But because it's homeostasis, that's where we keep going back to. Think of homeostasis like your central heat and air in a house or an apartment. You set it to a number and then things happen, the air comes on, but it'll turn off, right? Because it keeps coming back to that homeostatic point. That's what homeostasis is. So we generally, as humans, have our set point, okay? Unfortunately, you get that from genes, but we'll talk about that too. Okay, so how do you get happy, right? If you can't pursue pleasure and wellness and a sense of well-being, how do you get there? All right. Chef Mike says the hedonic treadmill, the observed tendency of humans to quickly return to a relative stable level of happiness despite major positive or negative events or life changes, right? Like you're going to come back to baseline, right? It doesn't, nothing lasts, right? Whether it's good, whether it's great or whether it's terrible. Those great feelings don't last, and the terrible feelings don't last, right? Okay, so how do we get happy? How do you get happiness, right? Well, 50% of happiness is your homeostasis, right? It's genetic, and you can't do a lot about that. Although, over time you can change your set point a little bit, okay? But you can't do a ton about it. You can't really just like reach into the lever and change your set point, right? 10% is life circumstances. Now, that's not a huge amount, 10%, but it can affect a lot, right? Now, with your life circumstances, you can only do so much and so fast. You can't like just wave a magic wand and have a ton of money and pay all your bills or, whatever it is, whatever circumstance you're in. Most of the time, if it was an easy fix, you would have already done it, right? So we can only do so much and we can only do so much so fast. But the good thing is 10%. The other 40% is personal choices. So this is what research shows us. 50% is your genes, which you can change a little bit. 10% is life circumstances, which is difficult to change. 40% personal choices. So we're going to kind of focus on the personal choices, right? Plus, it can affect our life circumstances. Our personal choices can. So that's kind of a good place to intervene, right? So here are some steps for happiness. Okay. Hope everybody's still with me. I'm going through this fast. Maybe I really, really, really want to get to the let's get weird. I kind of do. Okay. Here are the steps. Hi, cynical optimist. Thank you for being here. Here are the steps towards happiness, right? Number 1, quit trying to figure out why you're not happy. Now, for acute unhappiness, yes, quit trying to figure it out. All right. If it's chronic unhappiness, right? I mean, we have to look at, are you so unhappy you're depressed and right, like you might be a danger to yourself and others, then we need to figure out what's going on, right? But in general, if you're generally not happy, quit trying to figure out why. That makes you overthink on being unhappy. Okay? So the focus on why am I sad? Why am I mad? Why do I feel guilty? Why am I hopeless all the time? Why am I so negative? It's kind of like sleep. It makes you more sad, mad, guilty, hopeless, negative, because that's what you're focusing on, right? It makes you feel the feelings that you're focusing on. So what you focus on is what you see. We've talked about that before. Confirmation bias, right? What you focus on is what your life is about. So number 1, stop trying to figure out the whys and wherefores. If it was easy to figure out the whys, you would have already figured out the whys and you would have fixed the why, right? But if you're generally just not happy, stop focusing on the bad stuff. 2, this is a big one. So we're going to kind of go deep into number 2. Evaluate the social norms, expectations, and what you've been taught about happiness. What does it tell you is acceptable happiness? Okay, we're talking about society. What are societal norms and expectations around you being able to be happy, right? The reason is because we make choices on those expectations and on societal norms and biases. Okay, so, things like men and women, what's acceptable for men, what's acceptable for women. Differing races and nationalities. What's acceptable? Now we're talking about happiness, but other emotions are in there too, right? So races and nationalities, religion, but we'll talk about religion when we get to the tinfoil hat. All right. Your income level. There's expectations about happiness, about you feeling happy and staying happy and how you can express being happy, right? Leon says society is wild. That's some real brainwashing. You're skipping ahead to the weird stuff. All right, so as an example, men, these are societal expectations. This is not me saying these things, okay? Just caveat. Men can't be too emotional with any emotion, okay? You can't be too sad. You can't be too joyous. The only acceptable one is slightly too angry, right? Like men in general, the societal expectation is you're either like apathetic baseline or you can be a little mad. Like that's what's acceptable. Men are shamed for showing joy, for being exuberant, for laughing or giggling or dancing with happiness, right? Unless the man is LGBT. Well, I guess he wouldn't be an L, would he? Then it flips and becomes an expectation that he's going to be joyous, exuberant, giggling, dancing, right? So the expectation, again, the focus is how to suppress expressions of emotion rather than feeling them. So what men are told is not to feel the feelings that they're having, but to suppress the expression of the feeling that they're having, right? Adrian says no frolicking. Did you guys ever see those the TikTok videos that went viral, but it was Black men frolicking, where they were like running through the field and skipping and dancing and giggling? And I thought it was great for this reason, because men are supposed to suppress all emotions, especially happiness, and Black men even more so, are supposed to suppress emotions. Like you get to anything and somebody's going to have a problem with it. Men are told that happiness comes from working hard, making lots of money, and their sexual prowess, either through a trophy wife or being some sort of eligible bachelor stud type guy, right? So men are told the only way you can be happy is if you work hard, you make a lot of money, and you have sexual prowess. If you don't have that, what are you happy for? You're a nerd or a geek or you're poor or, what do you have to be happy about? Right? This is the only reasons men can be happy. Okay. Women not only can be, but should be very emotive. Okay. Because stoic women are shamed and told they're masculine or that they have resting bitch face. So, they can be emotive and they're supposed to be emotive. Women are told that happiness comes from, you got to have Prince Charming, right? You got to have the guy and the 2.1 perfect children in the house in the suburbs, right? If you don't have those things, what are you happy about? If you're not married or you don't have children, you shouldn't be happy, right? And we see people pander to the stereotypes of what makes us happy or joyful. Like, look at performative politics or any type of pandering measures, right? It helps with the propaganda of that too, right? So we see the performative nature of what supposedly makes people happy, right? Leon was frolicking. Yay. Adrian just says, don't go see them. Right. But that's, you know what? Men kind of get a pass when they have children, especially sons, right? Like, because then you can buy cool toys and stuff, and you can play toys, or you can go outside and play, right? Because you get the excuse of, well, I'm playing with a boy. So that's a good pass to have. You know what I mean? It's just unfortunate when they get older because then you don't get to play so much anymore. Okay. So let's talk about, there was a study by the National Institutes of Health called Black-White Happiness Gap from 1972 to 2014. Now, for extra credit, who can tell me what happened in 1972 that might have anything to do with a black and white happiness gap? I'm not going to play the dee 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 dee, but you get extra credit. Okay. Chef Mike says, worked for me and my sons. We still throw the football on Sundays. See, you still get to play, right? But, do you get to play Hot Wheels on the tracks? Do you have Nerf wars? Do you put model cars together? Do you build Legos? Like, all of those are pretty fun. They're actually pretty fun. Okay. Study from the National Institutes of Health, Black-White Happiness Gap from 1972 to 2014. So what they were showing is the gap is shrinking. Okay, well, good. But the biggest indicators for happiness on both sides are income and marital status, right? So we're either more or less happy based on our income and our marital status, right? It kind of depends on if you're making money, if you have an income, and how much of an income, and then are you happy in your marriage? Those are the two biggest indicators. It was already proven and pervasive that there's happiness gaps among socioeconomic status. Okay, that makes sense, right? Does money buy happiness? It's the age-old question. Are you guys ready? Does money buy happiness? Sure it does, because you have money to pay for your basic needs, right? If you don't have money to pay for your basic needs, happiness is kind of the last thing on your mind. Survival is the first thing on your mind, right? Money also buys amenities, and amenities reduce stress. Buying amenities is definitely, right, reducing stress. Then you can also buy, the richer you get, luxuries. And luxuries increase life satisfaction, that sense of well-being. Life is good, right? Money increases your options in your personal choices, right? And remember, that was 40% of happiness, right? So if you have a lot more options in your personal choices, then yeah. And also it changes your life circumstance. So yeah, money can buy happiness, but here's the but. Money is not necessary for happiness, okay? So we don't want to confuse the two. Yeah, money can buy some happiness. Again, fleeting, like everything, right? But it's not necessary for happiness. All right. Adrian says, I still collect Hot Wheels, so yes. Yay. Cynical Optimist loves Legos. Yay. Chef Mike says money can help me go from 0 to 60 in 4 seconds. You're right. You buy that car, you get the adrenaline rush and have a lot of fun driving that car, right? Like, it increases life satisfaction. It reduces stress. So of course money can buy happiness. But again, it's not necessary for happiness. Well, how many times I got to say that? All right. Step 3 to happiness. Hi, Rael. Thank you for being here. Step 3 for happiness, to get happiness. Take responsibility for your own happiness. Is life happening to you, or are you living life? Are you in the driver's seat? Are you? Or does everything just keep happening to you? Is it one thing after the other? And if it's not this, it's that, and something else is going wrong. And, life is beating me up. We have to take responsibility. Okay. That's kind of that life circumstances. You know what I mean? But again, the other way is other people don't get to dictate your happiness. Now, sometimes we confuse that a little bit because we think it means other people can't make you unhappy. Well, of course they can. If somebody's mean to you, if somebody's rude to you, if somebody attacks you, if somebody hurts your feelings, it can affect it. But other people don't get to dictate whether you're happy or not. Okay. Other people are not in charge of your feelings. They can affect your feelings momentarily. Of course they can, and they should be held accountable, but they don't get to dictate whether you're allowed to be happy or not. Okay. Other people won't make you happy or save you from your unhappiness. Okay. Oh, if I meet the right woman, I'm going to be so happy. Oh, if I only find the right guy, if I find the perfect purse, although if I find the perfect purse, I'm going to throw that out there. I'm going to be happy for a little bit. Okay. So let's talk about the pillars of happiness. That helps in the steps, right? So the final step is focus on the pillars of happiness. Because like I said, the more you focus on trying to be happy or getting rid of unhappiness, the more unhappy you will get. So let's focus on the pillars. This will help us. Okay. Chef Mike likes that. Okay. Is life happening to you or are you living your life? Yes. Okay. Pillars of happiness. Number 1, meaning. Finding meaning, right? In whatever way you can. It doesn't have to be huge either. Like whatever way you can say that your existence means something, right? Is it your children, your legacy, whatever? Is it art that you make? Is it advocacy work that you do? Is it some contribution that you make? Is it the friends that you have that you're helpful to them and they lean on you? Is it your family members because you're so tight to them and you couldn't do life without each other? Look at the meaning. And again, it doesn't have to be huge. You don't have to save the planet because most of us are just regular folks. Like we're not all going to save the planet. So what is meaningful in your life? What gives your life meaning, right? Rael says people can add to your happiness. They can't make you happy. Right. And because happiness is fleeting, even when they add to your happiness, eventually that becomes the status quo. It becomes homeostasis. Okay. Second pillar of happiness is authenticity, right? I can't tell you how often I push this with people. Being your true self with your values versus expectations and societal norms, right? Like, are you going to be your true self and be true to what you value? Or are you going to do what's expected of you? Are you going to do what society dictates that you do? And didn't I just say that other people don't get to dictate your happiness, right? You can, how do I say this? In being authentic, you can lie to other people about yourself, but you can't lie to yourself about yourself. So you will always be a little dissonant or off if you're not being authentic because you're living a lie. Okay. So get rid of that discomfort and just be weird. Say the weird thing, do the weird thing, be the weird person, and just be okay with it. Okay. Third pillar, optimism. Optimism can be very difficult, especially in this day and age. Optimism can be hard. But what I mean about that is focus on the hopeful parts of things. Focus on the hopeful aspects, not the failings, not the terrible parts. Okay. And I'm not saying be Pollyanna and pie in the sky and rose-colored glasses and all that kind of stuff. It's kind of like saying focus on what you can change, because focusing on what you can do nothing about just makes you unhappy. So focus on the hopeful things, not just the failings, right? Understand what failed and then just apply it to the next try. We're focusing on what's hopeful. Okay. Next pillar is gratitude, appreciating the good things. And there are always good things. If you can't appreciate what is good, and show it some appreciation, you'll always be looking for something better, which is just telling yourself there's nothing good right now. Then it's kind of like that. If only I would marry the right person. If only I would get that job. If only I would do today, right? Because I'm not appreciative for anything good happening right now and I'm showing it no appreciation, right? Then we're always just looking forward to that thing that's going to make us happy. Chef Mike says, most people, I am not who I think I am. I am not who you think I am. I am who I think you think I am. You know what that just reminded me of was there's a biblical quote where the disciples are asking Jesus about himself. Well, are you the Messiah? Are you this? Are you that? Are you, and his response was, well, who do you think I am? That's what that reminds me of, right? To you, I only am and only will ever be who you think I am, right? Excuse me. Who do men say that I am? Yeah. And of course, when I'm quoting biblical things, pick different versions of the Bible. Right? Because I remember it. Who do you think that I am? He's saying, who do men say that I am? Right? Like, depends on the version, I'm sure. Okay. But it's the same premise. All right. Next pillar, compassion, right? Anxiety and depression are self-focused. Okay. When we're feeling anxiety and depression, we become very self-focused. Okay. We're very focused on the anxiety. We're very focused on being sad, right? We're very internally focused. So with compassion, it broadens our perspective to other people. And when we broaden our focus to other people, the self-focus kind of dissolves and goes away. Okay. Generosity, second to the last pillar. Generosity. How do you give and who do you give to? Okay. Not just money, right? People generally, generosity and they think, oh, I'm supposed to give away all my money. Not just money. Take care of yourself first. But patience. Who do you give your patience to? Who do you give your time to? Who do you give your understanding to? Who do you give your presence to? Who do you give your conversations to, right? That's generosity. But it's not just how you give, but who do you give it to? Because again, hearkening back to expectations, sometimes we're being generous to people who only serve to make us feel worse because they're using us or they take it for granted or, it's expected and all these kind of things, right? Cynical optimist. I know you are, but what am I? Now I'm thinking Pee Wee Herman. All right. Oh, Chef Mike says he's in agreement with me. Asked both questions, actually. Thank you. Because all I remembered was the one. So, all right. And the last one, mindfulness, right? And for me, I'm not going to say to me, for me, mindfulness is the most important one for my happiness. Could be the same way for you. Okay. Mindfulness. That is be here right now, fully in this moment. Looking ahead or looking around or what's, comparing, doing all these things, looking to the future, thinking about the next thing you got to do, right? So what it does is it's thinking that that moment or that situation deserves more of your focus. And in that way, life will pass you by. Being in the moment almost stops time. Being fully present, listening to every word a person tells you, enjoying doing whatever you're doing, even if it's innocuous, right? Be in the moment. Even when I'm like, there's certain dishes I hand wash, right? So even when I'm hand washing the dishes, I will make it a practice to try to be in the moment. The suds are kind of fun and feel good. The warm water feels good. Hot water feels good to me. um, Making the pot clean, scrubbing it until it's just perfectly clean. It's really satisfying. And then rinsing everything off of it. Like just being it fully present in the moment is a big pillar of happiness. Okay. Now, focusing on those pillars, studies have shown increases happiness. So come back and watch this again if you need to. I probably should have put like a visual up, maybe. Sorry. All right. Cynical optimist says, looking at it now from a philosophical perspective, it sounds like being a mirror for someone else. It kind of does. It's like mirroring back, It's almost like, do you hear the words coming out of your mouth? Who are you saying that I am? Who are other people saying that I am? Now say it out loud so you can hear yourself say it. That's something that therapists do sometimes, because people will just be saying stuff and they'll be getting irrational and they'll be saying things that are just wholly untrue. Like, I'm the most terrible person in the world. And it's like, hold on. What did you just say? That I'm the most terrible person in the world? Hmm. People are like, well, not the whole world. Sometimes people need to like hear the words that are coming out of their mouth, or as I used to be told, taste the words before you speak them. Right? Like, if they taste nasty, don't say it. Okay. All right. Is everybody ready to get weird? Because we're going to get really weird. I hope everybody's ready to get weird. Let's get it up there. If we're ready, right? Now, I said we are going to talk about religion when we get weird. Okay? So, what does religion say about happiness, right? In Western monotheistic cultures that are dominated by Christianity, happiness comes from making God happy, right? So these were just random little memes that I put up. And I put up Christian happy, right? Like literally there's one that says, only in God will you find true happiness. Woof. Woof. Right? Happiness comes from making God happy. If you make God happy by following God's mandates and worshiping God, that means your happiness then belongs to God, right? Because we have to offer to God. We have to thank God for all the things that make us happy, right? Like, if something makes us happy, then we've been blessed, And so we have to thank God for our happiness, because we can only be happy in him. And then we have to give him all the credit for all of our happiness, right? And this is just, I'm not saying anything about God or Jesus or Christianity as a belief system. What I'm saying is westernized monotheistic religions, primarily Christianity. Okay. So happiness comes from making God happy. Okay. And you only get to be happy if you're making God happy. All right. So my question is, who is this guy? Right. Who is like, you don't get to be responsible for your own happiness. Your happy is my happy. And you only get it when you make me happy. Right. So who is this guy? So I want to tell you guys a story. Okay. This is where we're going to get weird. Hope everybody's ready to get weird. Right. All right. Did you know that the followers of the Torah believe that God had a battle with the god of the sun, Amun-Ra? Okay. So we're going to talk about God, which is like the Hebrew Israelite version of God, which then morphed into the Christian God. So it's supposedly the same God. And the Egyptian god Amun-Ra. Okay. So Pharaoh said to Moses, right? And I even have the link there. It's www.thetorah.com. Okay. Pharaoh said to Moses, Ra is before you. So then what happened? Locusts come out, right? And blot out the sun, right? But it literally states locusts covered the eye of the sun of the land, right? Amun-Ra, eye of Ra. Interesting, right? Why would you say locusts cover the eye of the sun of the land? It's interesting. And again, Torah, right? These are not necessarily biblical quotes, right? So Pharaoh says to Moses, Ra is before you. So here come the locusts. They blot out the sun, right? Then we have 3 days of darkness, no sun. Again, Amun-Ra, sun god. 3 days of darkness. Then the firstborns die at midnight, which during that time, it was said that midnight is when Amun-Ra is the farthest away. So midnight was important. So there are multiple statements in the Torah and in Exodus, we're talking biblically, where Pharaoh is threatening Moses's God with Ra, right? So Pharaoh says, I see through my astrology a star rising to meet you, and its name is Ra, and it is a sign of blood and killing. Now, in some biblical texts, Ra, it says, it's instead of Ra, it says its name is evil. Because interestingly enough, the Hebrew word for evil is also Ra. Right? And that happened after the battle with Amun-Ra. So, in fact, in the Torah, they make it clear that all 10 plagues, during this time where Moses and Pharaoh are arguing, but they're utilizing their gods to fight with each other. But all 10 plagues were attacks on specific Egyptian gods. But the primary focus was on the king of gods, which is Amun-Ra. Okay. Hope everybody's still with me in the weirdness. Right? Okay. So it would be really interesting to just consider, get weird with me, okay? It would be really interesting to consider what would have happened if Amun-Ra won the battle, right? Because in the Torah and in the Bible, God won, and the Israelites or the Hebrews were freed from slavery. Now there was some trying to go back on that decision a little bit, but essentially they're outie. Okay. So what would happen if Amun-Ra had won? Okay. So my question or my statements when considering this, okay. First of all, God freed the Israelites by battling with Amun-Ra and the other Egyptian gods. Okay. So we know that. 2, the Israelites were punished. So once they got out, right, the Israelites were punished for worshiping a golden calf and not listening to God, right? Now, if you look up the golden calf, it's the Canaanites, their supreme god was El, and El was symbolized by a golden calf. But in the Torah and the Bible, God is one of his names is El or Elohim, either one. So why were they punished? I mean, why would El get mad about people worshiping El? Something to think about. Why would El get so mad about worshiping El that he made them wander around for 40 years? And why does he hate golden calves but not golden crosses? Why would El, and again, this God, right? Torah, Bible, this is El, who just battled the sun god by making it dark, make the Israelites wander in the desert full of sun for 40 years as a punishment for worshiping him. So these are just things I'm thinking about. And lastly, why would he free them only to punish them for following ways that they were taught during their enslavement? So, you know, all things to think about when we try to figure out, well, who actually won, right? Because we only know what's in the Torah and the Bible, okay? So, let's do a bit of story time. I hope y'all are still with me. All the comments just totally dried up. Okay, let's have a story time. Okay. The heretical period of Akhenaten, and you might recognize the word Akhenaten. Think Tutankhamun. Okay. All right. This is the period that we're in. Now, there's a person named Akhenaten. But this is like a dark period of time during the cult of Amun, okay, which is Amun-Ra, okay. So Akhenaten was born Amenephis, and I said that way for a reason. Amenephis, Amenephis, the fourth, right? All right, everybody's here. Okay, Amenephis is a name paying homage to Amun. So the way to pay homage is to use Amen, Amen, is the way to pay homage to Amun. So Akhenaten was born Amenephis IV, okay? Akhenaten is the son of Amenephis III, obviously, but that person was an important pharaoh in the 14th century BC. When he succeeded his father and came to power, the young Amenephis IV wanted to reform and modernize Egypt, especially its religious practices. Okay, so Amenephis IV becomes pharaoh. Okay, so he changed his name from Amenephis to Akhenaten to worship the god Aten, which he said was the supreme God, the only God, practically monotheistic, right? And so if you see those pictures on the bottom, Aten was a sun disk with a bunch of rays coming out of it that all had hands on the bottom. It's a very interesting version of a god. But this is what Akhenaten said, the supreme God, the God, is Aten. Okay? So Akhenaten died, right? And then his son, Akhenaten, took the throne, changed his name to Tutankhamun, right? Amun, he took the Aten off and put the Amun back on, okay? So he said all that Aten stuff was weirdo pants McGee, and we're going back to worshiping the king of all gods, Amun. Okay, so Tutankhamun took the throne, changed his name back to the Amun and not the Aten, and even moved the capital of Egypt back to where it was before. So he reinstated the old Egyptian religion, opened all the temples that had been closed, and then after he died, because he died young, remember, Horemheb ruled and tried to hide all the lineage and history of this period of time, because it was sort of like we got weird there for a while when we tried to be monotheistic and have like a one God thing, who was the God of all and the only God, right? So all the old gods came back, right? All the old gods were raised to their former heights, right? So the power of the Aten cult and Akhenaten's religious movement seem to have continued, though, on the side. That's the way with cultish behavior. It'll still continue. You'll still have a few people doing it. It has been theorized, and I want to be very clear with this, it's been theorized from multiple sources, including being studied by scholars and philosophers, that the great Hebrew lawgiver Moses was a priest of Aten who left Egypt with his followers to establish a monotheistic community elsewhere. And there is actually some proof of this, but nothing definitive. Okay. Hi, Snowman. Maggie. Thanks for being here. Okay. So keep that in mind. The great Hebrew lawmaker Moses was a priest of Aten, the one God, who left Egypt with his followers to establish a monotheistic community somewhere else. Okay. Aten was considered to have been everywhere and intangible. Sounds about right. Aten made and loved all creatures, and he embodied divine perfection. I mean, that sounds like a God we know, right? And just as a side note, just keep this in mind. Ancient Egyptian gods could become another god by taking that other god's power. So this is how Amun conjoined with Ra, but Amun-Ra is also known as Amun-Min, who is also conflated with Horus. And Amun-Ra is related to Horus in a roundabout way. Amun-Ra also absorbed Montu of Thebes as well, but didn't use his name. I guess it would be Amantu if he did that. Right, but this is how Egyptian gods worked. You would, if you absorbed that power and you kind of became one with that other god, then the names would conjoin, right? As a matter of fact, so the Greeks, when they had their period of time trying to conjoin Egyptian deities with their deities, they actually had Zeus. Was it Amun Zeus? I think it was Amun Zeus, where they were trying to be like, no, Amun and Zeus came together and now we can worship this. It didn't really take. So, okay. All right. You're fine, Snowman. You're here when you're here. All right. Are you guys ready for tinfoil hat? Now that we've gotten weird, right? About religion and who's in charge of the religion and who's telling you what you can and cannot do to be happy and who owns that happiness. So let's get into the tinfoil hat, right? Now the tinfoil hat generally has to do with like government and society and things like that. Like it's weird, but it's not as weird as the other. So, all right. Now, hopefully you all can read this and feel free to take a screenshot of this because I just find it just super duper interesting. So we have another story time. All right. There once was an ancient religion whose God was conceived by a virgin and he had a stepfather. This God was born in a cave and his birth was announced by an angel, heralded by a star and attended to by shepherds. He attended a special rite of passage at the age of 12, although the ancient texts describing this God are kind of silent about him from about age 12 to 30. At about 30 years of age, this God was baptized in a river. His baptizer was later killed, beheaded. He had 12 disciples, performed miracles, exorcised demons, raised somebody from the dead, and even walked on water. They called him Ayusa, meaning the ever-becoming Son. They called him the Holy Child. He delivered a Sermon on the Mount, and his followers recounted his sayings. He was transfigured on the mount and eventually crucified between two thieves. He was buried for 3 days in a tomb and rose from the dead. His followers called him the Way. They called him the Truth, and they called him Light. They called him Messiah. They called him God's anointed Son. They called him Son of Man, Good Shepherd, Lamb of God, Word made flesh, Word of truth, The KRST, the anointed one. He was also known as the fisher and was associated with the fish, the lamb, and the lion. According to this ancient religion, this god came to fulfill the law and was supposed to reign 1,000 years. Sounds a lot like Jesus, doesn't it? However, this story, this description, is of a god before Christianity, and it was Horus, which again is conflated with Amun-Ra. Interesting. All right. That's pretty far afield, though, but I want you to know, because that was tinfoil hat, right? But again, it's when it's talking about religion, who is telling you what you can be happy about, how you can behave, what you need to do, where happiness comes from, right? When we bank our happiness on another person, a belief system, a religion, a political view, or even a deity, there's always rooms for questions, right? And then you set yourself up for disappointment, right? And again, I'm not saying anything about God. I'm talking about the writings and what we've been told, okay? We can never really truly live up to the expectations of other people anyway, let alone a deity. My goodness. It seems like you're being set up for failure, and happiness should be based on our own expectations and truth. And if not, it might be time for a pivot point. And I'm just going to leave this slide right here. Just leave it right there, just for, something to think about, right? We kind of went over some of this with money, but, some of this is just interesting. Now, I want to tell you too, if there's anything else you want to look up about Aten, because I just told you everything about Horus, but please look it up. Or if you want to look up how Horus is related to, but kind of gets conflated with Amun-Ra, there's some weird stuff, okay? Like Amun-Ra's daughter is Isis, but she's also Amun-Ra's concubine and also Horus's mother. So interesting, right? You can also look up Psalms 104 and compare it to the hymn to Aten, right? Just interesting stuff. All right, Nina says, I love this. And Ra-El says, facts. Thanks. You know what? There's your name, Ra and L. Look at that. Your timing is impeccable. So those are all things to think about. Those are things that, are weird, questions to have, things to look at. Again, I'm not saying anything about God or people's belief systems, just the stories and what we're told and how we're told, about our own happiness and how to behave and how to be and those kind of things. So it's good to know all the information. Hi, M. Lavo. Thank you for being here. He says, great info. He or she, but I'm pretty sure he. All right. So this coming Sunday is another one I'm super excited about, which is the impact of AI on human identity. Ooh. Now, I'm kind of leaving it open for next Wednesday because I almost feel like on Sunday, we're going to talk a lot about, from a philosophical standpoint, philosophy and psychology, from that standpoint of AI and human identity. But then next Wednesday, I almost want to get deeper and have, a point of let's get weird and maybe some tinfoil hat with AI and human identity. We'll see, because I have a couple of other ideas for Wednesday. So we'll see how far I get into it. I may just let it all out on Sunday. Who knows? Authenticity, right? Right. Leon says, same old stories where people change names because they had power, right? What do they say? That's his story, not history, right? And Lavo says, also, how do you worship an entity from one time in another time? Yeah, I mean, I kind of get that. I kind of get that. Um, you know, there's some beliefs that at some point I might share. Just so you guys know. Oh, here's another little like I'll put this little teaser out here. I don't know if you guys would like this or not, but I'm almost to 3,000 watch hours. If you guys can help with that, that's great. I mean, you do already. You are right now. Now 3,000 hours is when you can do like memberships and which I may or may not. I'm not sure. It's a lot to keep track of, but like super stickers and super chats and stuff like that. Because I've already met all of the other criteria. So I'm thinking I'm well over 2,000 watch hours. So I need to get to 3,000 for that's the last little goal. I'm thinking about doing a like an AMA, which I've always been super scared of. But obviously if I don't know the answer to something, I'm just going to tell you I don't know. I don't know anything about that. But I think sometimes it would be cool to like really get deep into some of this stuff and some beliefs and really talk about it. So an AMA might be kind of fun, and Ask Me Anything might be kind of fun as a like a celebration of 3,000 watch hours. So you guys will have to let me know if that's what you want to do. And then, however people can help, and shout out to the replay gang who also helps with getting those the watch hours up. But I think it might be a fun time, right? Armando says, definitely fantastic segments. These deep dives are the best. Thank you. I have so much fun with these. Also says, an all tinfoil hat and weirdness show. I'm all in. That's kind of what I want the AMA to be. Is just kind of a ask me anything. Like, let's get into it. You know what I mean? Rael says, let's get it. Leon says, 100 congrats. Yeah. Lavo's in. Hi, BGS. Thank you for being here. He says, don't be scared. Yeah, BGS does the AMAs. But so I think that's good. Good. I think that's what we'll do. I think people will like that. So once I get there, I'll make an announcement, make a time. When I make the announcement that I'm going to do the AMA, actually on this video where I first talked about it, put like days and times that are good for an AMA because I want to have the most engagement. You know what I mean? If it's just going to be like a Wednesday when I'm regularly here and people are just totally prepared for that, or a Sunday, that's great. But I want the most engagement. So I will work around like whatever the most common time frame is. Chef Mike says I can really geek out with combos like this. Oh my gosh. You guys are my tribe, honestly. Like this kind of stuff I love. I love the rabbit holes and geeking out on stuff and really having good conversations. Heck, if we get some really good conversations going during the AMA, we may segue into like a panel and have some really good philosophical conversation. BGS says Sunday is the best day. I think, a lot of people are off on Sundays, so not everybody, but there might be a little more time for sure. For sure. Okay. Well, hopefully I see you guys this Sunday for the impact of AI on human identity. And I'm going to talk a bit about human consciousness. And then next Wednesday, I haven't quite decided about the topic, but I'll get it planned and get it put up so you guys can get prepared. And then the AMA is coming soon. All right. I hope everybody has a good rest of your Wednesday. Oh, one more comment. Look, Rael got in at the buzzer. As much as modern humans believe they are advanced in many ways, we're more primitive than the previous epochs of time and the philosophies that define their forward trajectory. I cannot agree with you more, Rael. That's why it becomes kind of like like a goal for me to talk about philosophies and to talk about ancient things and to even talk about philosophers from less than 100 years ago because we've lost a lot of that and we're becoming more survival focused and faces and screens and we're losing a lot of stuff like critical thinking and you know struggling brother, thank you for being here. He says good stuff today. Okay, so I couldn't agree with you more. All right, I hope you all have a good night.